audio. And just check it. Yeah, you're good. Hi everybody, welcome to the Applied Information Show. Today's show we're going to be doing streamlined management of school beacons, and today I'm joined by Mike Slavic, who is going to be our technical expert today, who's going to help us explain school beacons. So before I get into the show, I'm going to hand over to Jessica Shin, who's going to basically take us through a little bit of the housekeeping rules during the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to another show with us here at the iATL. Just a couple things. If this is your first time, we are going to be doing Q&A here today. So if you will use the Q&A button in your Zoom dashboard down at the bottom instead of the chat feature, that will make that easier for us. Also, you have the option to view this in HD via YouTube instead of Zoom. And we will also be willing to reach out to anyone that wants to know more before, after, or during this. So just contact us at sales@appinfoinc.com if you have any other questions. I think that takes care of it. Back to you, Peter.
Thanks so much, Jessica. So Mike, thanks for joining the show today. And what we're talking about is how we streamline school beacon management, but mainly during this whole COVID-19 situation. Now, you had to deal with a lot of people calling in.
Oh, yes.
But just explain sort of the process that they had to go through a little bit, you know, when COVID-19 hit and how they actually went about turning off some of their school beacons.
Well, it's kind of unique because now the call came out to a lot of these counties and various districts who say, you know what, we need to shut down schools now. And the phone calls that I was getting was, how can we go about shutting down the beacons without actually having to touch every single one? So there's a few different ways that they were able to do that. You could either use a scenario application where you shut them all off at once, or you could actually go in and schedule a holiday. And of course, well, some people don't touch these things very often, maybe once a year, and there was kind of like a rush to get these things done. So I had to walk through a few customers on how to go about accomplishing that.
Yeah, because I know that, as you said, there were a couple of customers that clicked through each and every single one and turned it off. There were some people that also, you know, went in and set up a holiday schedule, but and also the program delay. and the problem was we didn't know how long it was going to last.
Very true.
So, the program delay, you can go and put it in for, a couple of days, but it wasn't a good permanent solution. So, what's your recommendation, for the people that are out there? I know that when you have something like this, what's the right way of doing that?
Well, I have both schools of thought on it. I think that the more permanent and probably best way, in my opinion, of doing it would be to set up an actual holiday for all the schools. And that way, there's no worry about having to go back in and turn them back on. So you can actually forget about it. And once the holiday period is over, they automatically go back on schedule again.
Or you can forget that the holiday period is over and then they do turn on. So there's no right and wrong way of doing this. And that's why multiple people have done it in different ways. The great thing obviously is, the Glance application, the Glance school zone system allows you to remotely connect to everything. So we were able to, do this in multiple different ways to actually connect to these different beacons. So one of the things that we're going to be doing during this show is we're going to be showcasing the Glance system live. So Mike Slavic's going to walk us through how you set up a schedule, how you create these scenarios, and just a bit of a basic background to the Glance system there. And what I'll do is I'm going to give a little bit of a high-level overview of the Glance School Beacon Management System, just to basically showcase kind of what are some of the high-level functionalities behind it. So before we get there, the marketing team has come up with a nice little video, and it just made me chuckle. So I just have to play this because I thought it was a great little video. So you guys are going to hear this little video. It's only 40 seconds long.
We ask enough of our educators. At Applied Information, we try to help. Like making school beacons easier to manage. Adjust beacon schedules from anywhere. Get customizable, smart alerts based on your criteria. Install is easy and the beacons configure themselves automatically. When it comes to managing your school beacons, Applied Information has you covered. Managing kids, we don't really have an answer for that. But school beacons? We can definitely do school beacons.
I just have to laugh each time, I mean, I'm sure all of you guys have also got young kids. So, that's when you've got young kids and managing the kids is always something that, that's harder than managing your school beacons.
Very true, very true.
All right, Mike, what we're going to do is Mike's going to also just go through and we've got a school beacon here that he's going to open up and showcase a little bit about that. So I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple of slides over here just to show everybody a little bit of behind the scenes of what the Glance school beacon system can do. So just at a high level, we're obviously wirelessly with a cellular communication monitoring your school zones and able to remotely control your school zones. So that's remotely changing your schedules, turning them on, turning them off. But it also gives you the ability of monitoring lamp failures. So if one of your individual lamps has failed, now we're actually monitoring the current in there, not just the voltage, but the actual current to determine if there's a lamp that's failed. And then we do monitoring your AC voltage, your solar batteries, as well as door switches and knockdown sensors as well. So all of those different things are monitored within the Glance school beacon system. Now, obviously school zones are one of them, which, monitoring the school zones, reduce the speed of the drivers driving through the school zones, and that's been shown. The same unit can also do driver feedback signs. So you can connect to a driver feedback sign, bring back the speed, the volume of the vehicles, the 85th percentile, the 95th percentile, and the median speed, and physically control those signs. So you don't have to send someone down there to download all the data. And sometimes there's a dual system with a flasher as well as a driver feedback sign, and you can control all of these different aspects with the driver feedback sign with the same unit that we're showcasing today. So driver feedback signs are part of the school zone safety aspect, and this same unit can wirelessly monitor and control the driver feedback signs. And we're working with 3 major manufacturers there. It's IDC or Comana, Traffic Calm, and RU2. So there's 3 major people that we've fully integrated. If you've just got another system up there, we can monitor the solar panels and the batteries and all the rest, and down the line we can actually integrate to them as well. The other aspect that we're doing is we're also connecting to the pedestrian crossings or RRFB systems. So you can actually get connected to those, determine how many buttons are pushed. So all of that information comes back to you that you can see exactly what's happening. Now, what does it look like in the glance system? So, you know, here's a map of Georgia DOT that have about 800 devices connected, and you can see all of the different devices over here that get connected. And Mike Slavic's going to go through a number of other slides as we go through there. So Mike, maybe what you want to do is let's go pick up the box and maybe put it on your lap and start opening up the box, and I'll go get another camera over here as well.
Sure. One of the nice features about what applied information can actually do for you is if we're given information even before you go to deploy your units, we can actually have each one labeled as to where they're going to be installed. And you'll find that information right here actually on the box. It actually says, in this case here, it says Paradigm Stock, but we could actually put the street name and location as to where it's supposed to be going. We also show on here the actual ID number and the serial number of the device. Once you open up the box, you got some nice little goodies in here. First and foremost, we have a quick start guide. Very important. You might not want to be embarrassed to actually have to read instructions, but they do come very handy. Some of the things that you'll find in here, of course, you know, the recommended tools, what you should expect to see in the box, some various connections as far as the color coding as whether you're going to be doing a solar or an AC installation. Some of the best ways to test for signal strength, they talk about it in here. And of course, the actual commissioning procedure and installing your antenna. Another nice feature about this quick start guide is you have a checklist that you can go through. And once you actually do an install and you're all done with it, you can leave this checklist inside the cabinet to show that, you know, the individual tested this and the date it was done and everything was signed off on it. More information, of course, is the standard I/O allocation sheet, which lets you know what each wire, what it's used for and how it should be connected. Then we have a couple of examples of the electrical layouts. The upper one here is our solar application. You won't really need to use all these wires, but this is basically kind of like a generic connection diagram. And then the AC also, typically you're only going to use about 4 wires, but should you have a door switch or you'd use the additional relay, it shows you how to go about hooking those up. And the last one is just the actual shows you the pin out of each connector that's available. So good information. Don't forget to look at this when you're going to do your installs. What else is in the box? We have our cellular and GPS antenna. This is what we often call the K-cup because it looks like, you know, the little coffee thing you put in a Keurig coffee maker. In this case here, the bronze wire here is your cell, and the black wire is the GPS connection. And that becomes important. I'll show you here then in a few minutes as to where they actually get connected on the device. Some of the other goodies that you have inside here is you have the RS-232 connection. Should you actually have to manually connect to a radar sign, through this cable, or at least another one similar to this, it's probably a lot longer, about 15 foot, you'll get your radar data. This is where your actual speeds come through from the radar sign and get into the device. And again, that's an RS-232. Last harness is basically a universal harness. It can be used for AC or DC applications. Depending upon how you hook it up, each wire is individually labeled. And then, of course, you wire it into the installation, whether it's a retrofit or it's a brand new. And then whatever you don't use, you can tie back and bundle or cut them off to clean up your install. Last item, of course, is the device itself. I can set this box down here. Nice packaged in bubble wrap. So let's go ahead and rip into here. The bubble wrap is a little sticky. There it is. Looking for the end there. It's almost like Christmas time. Okay. I made mention about the labels earlier. These labels should match what you got on the outside of the box. Again, you got your ID number and the actual name of the location. The other things that you're going to see right here on the cover, of course, is going to give you an indicator as far as what each one of these lights stand for. You have the cell and the GPS antennas and your mode switch, whether it's going to be on, off, or automatic.
And what do you use that little switch for there?
This switch is actually a manual override. If you were actually in front of the device, this gives you the ability to, our normal mode of operation, you're going to leave it in auto. But if you wanted to test your lamps, you could slap it into on, and at this point, if everything was all connected, our beacons should be flashing at this point. Or if you want to turn it off, like manually shut it off so they don't come on, leave it in the off position. But normally, it should be in the auto. There have been often instances where somebody will actually fat finger it and leave it in off position, and they're wondering, well, why isn't it coming on? I can show you an inside glance as to how to identify when that happens. But anytime you use this switch, if it's not in the auto position, it's going to say local override off or local override on in glance.
Okay, just also one of the things we do see a couple of times is the cell and GPS get switched.
Yes. And then,
which is which?
Good question, good question. The easiest way that I always remember this is, you look at it like this, it can be kind of confusing, all right? It says cell and GPS. But actually, what they're referring to is cell is the top one, GPS is the bottom one. So if you're thinking of mounting this thing flat with its back against the panel, GPS is always going to be on the bottom. The other little thing that I use to help me remember is on the GPS antennas, blue. Blue is bottom. That just helps me remember. If you do get the two antennas swapped, because it is very possible to connect them backwards, because they are the exact same connectors, or type of connectors, you will see in glance that your cell service has gone to about a -123, which is not a very good, and then you won't have a GPS lock. So that is a good indicator that you've got your antennas swapped. So the only thing I got to do is just unscrew them and reattach.
Okay, and what's on the bottom of the unit?
Bottom of the unit, this is where you actually make your connection for the large harness that I showed you earlier. Just plugged right into the bottom. And then over here on the far right-hand side is the actual 232 connection for where the radar data would come through. You also have the black rocker switch. When you're using this in a DC application, this rocker switch won't do anything for you because the batteries are already connected. You're already applying power. It's in the AC application where you actually can turn the power off and on to the device. Again, there is a difference between the 1 and the 0. 1 is on, 0 is off.
And then one thing, and maybe you want to explain to everyone, because this is a great story, is when I grew up, my dad always used to tell me, when something's heavy, it's quality. Can you tell everybody how heavy that is?
It's got some weight to it. I mean, it's got a battery in here. It's got a large transformer in here, so it's got some weight. If it's heavy, it can be expensive, sure.
This is one of those things that always kept with me when I was growing up. My dad was an audiophile, so you know those are the kinds of things. Something that's heavy has got to be quality. Perfect. Well then, Mike, I'm just going to go put this camera down, and we're going to go and talk a little bit more about the actual scheduling of the beacons and how we go about doing that. But before we go there, I'm just going to ask Jessica, do you have any questions at the moment from anyone?
I do.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so we have someone here asking, can the FCU500 be installed inside the radar speed feedback sign enclosure, or does this require a separate external cabinet?
It's a great question. So
Yes.
we recommend, and this is mainly through the guys from Florida who've deployed a lot of these. Some of them they've done inside of the sign, some of them they've got a separate little cabinet on the side of it. The only time you really would need, the only time you actually have the option of installing it just inside the sign is when you have an AC solution and they don't have a cabinet with it. Generally, when you get a solar activated sign, there's going to be a sun saver and batteries, and you would install it in that cabinet. We do have the ability of installing it inside of a Carmana IDC, where we have a little bracket that goes in, and you can mount our device inside of there. It is it's quite time consuming to install it inside of the sign, because you've got to take the front plate off, then you've got to take the two LED boards out, and then mount it inside, connect it all up, and then put it all back together. So it is a bit more of a process, especially if you've got to do any kind of maintenance on it. So our recommendation's generally to use a small little cabinet. I know our guys in Florida will always say, use a small cabinet, because they've done this a number of times. Mike, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and you can get a pretty small cabinet for these devices to fit in there, and it's easy to mount them inside a small cabinet. You even can bend the dog ears for better mounting. But the ones that I've had experience with is the IDC sign, where you actually had to go inside, and it is rather cumbersome having to remove the LED panels out of there, get this thing installed, and then make sure you got everything wired up. And should you forget to, your little toggle switch, you got to rip that all back apart again to get in there and to flick it back in. So having to go inside that box, it would be easier for you if you actually had a smaller box on the outside.
So it is cheaper to go and put it inside of there, but it's a lot more time consuming. So just depends on, you can buy a small cheap cabinet that you can, install on the side of the pole, which makes maintenance a lot easier down the line, or you can put it inside of the cabinet. It's up to you. Anything else, Jessica, for now, or? Yeah, you get another question? All right.
All right, so I have someone asking, can I use the LAN port to route the communications over our network instead of using cellular? Is that an option, or only cellular?
Absolutely. So yes, you can. We don't have a huge number of people, but there are certain places, Ocala in Florida and another one in Georgia.
Columbia County.
Columbia County, yeah. They actually have fiber all the way to all of their school beacons. So they just plug in Ethernet communication, and we just communicate straight over Ethernet. So it all just depends on where it's deployed. When you've got solar applications, generally you're not going to get fiber out there. But yeah, the Ethernet works in that way. So the Ethernet, the way that the device actually works is when it starts up, it will first check if there's an Ethernet connection here. And if there is an Ethernet connection, it communicates straight over Ethernet to the GLAN system. And if it doesn't see an Ethernet connection, it just communicates over the cell connection. So it's quite you do need to set up a couple of things within your network. Obviously, you're opening up some ports and things like that for the GLAN server. But, that's not very complicated, but we do need to work with the IT department there. Jessica, you got any more? No more? All right. Mike, what I think we should do is let's jump into the GLAN system, and maybe you can talk through a little bit about that. show people some scheduling, maybe even go over a little bit how people did create scenarios.
Sure.
And then after that, we'll take them back around here and we'll look at some of the live systems that you've got running up here in the lab.
Okay, we can do that. Let me go ahead and just shift my chair here.
Yeah, so Mike's going to basically get his chair over to the computer here as we're going to go through and showcase the Glance system. Obviously, Glance is a cloud-based system, so it's got a whole bunch of users on it, and I think we're going to be showcasing the Sugarland system. So over to you.
All right. So just like Peter was saying, we are going to show Sugarland, Texas here. They have a bunch of their devices are currently, well, for those of you that are familiar with Glance, you'll notice that the red dots over here on the side. These red dots have a purpose. They're trying to draw your attention as to what might be not normal with the device. It's just a red flag saying, hey, pay attention to me. So we're going to click on any one of these. And so I get Glance to respond here. There we go. So in this case here, the beacon that I selected was Commonwealth eastbound. And it's that red square next to it is indicating that the override is active. So what we found, playing with the various customers out there, a few of our customers wanted to do a scenario. They just wanted to be able to shut all the beacons off for COVID. And some also decided they wanted to use a holiday schedule. So really it's going to come down to whatever you feel or what you're most comfortable with as far as how to go about programming these devices. I can show you the first and foremost one is going to be the scenario application. So what you'll have to do,
Mike, before you go over there, can you go and explain what all the data is, what they're seeing there?
Oh, sure. Okay, so what we have on, let me take it back a step. I'm going to go to the home page. Oops. I hate touchpads. Okay. Go back to the home button. So when you first log into Glance, the first screen that you're going to come to is going to be your home page. Now, I don't have this one particular set up, but it should be centered around where all your devices are located. So in this case here, Sugarland, Texas.
I suppose we should have got you a mouse for this.
Yeah.
And
of course, it's not my computer either, so I'm a little not real used to it. But I'm getting there. Just bear with me. Wrong direction, of course. So Sugarland, Texas is a little southwest of Houston itself, for those that don't know where it's at. So typically when I set up a customer's profile, I give them their login information, their password, and I'll go ahead and set up to have their profile be centralized right on all their businesses. So what we've got here is all their devices. So this is the first page that you land on, and you get to see everything there. So if by chance you wanted to pick one particular beacon, you could always select one and click on it, or you can go over here to the column on the left-hand side and just select the name of the device that you want to get more details on. So this is what we call our home page, and then I'll go into a level 2 diagnostic page, which is I'm just going to select a beacon and click on it.
And you can also group beacons by schools, by districts, by elementary, whatever you feel like, and you just let us know how you want to group it, and we'll set it up for you in that fashion.
There's many different ways to skin a cat here. I mean, I've had customers actually say, group all my schools according to the schedule. So if all the schools that go off at 7 a.m. in the morning, well, they're all in the same group. Whether it's all elementary schools or all middle schools, or some of our larger customers like GDOT, for example, they want to have each county broken out and then each school inside that county. So it can get rather cumbersome, but it all makes it easier for them as to how they want to set it up. So this is the level 2 page. On this page, we're seeing, for example, that the name of the device is up here in the upper left corner. Again, it's got that little red square next to it, letting you know something's not quite normal. And then in here in the center of the page, we've got this current statuses. It's letting you know that the device is online. It's running the normal school schedule, and I'll show you that here shortly. And then, of course, the power status. It says no AC. That's letting us know that this is a DC unit. It's a solar unit. Current device status, it's okay. There's no problems as far as alarms. And then the last time, the time zone, it's at -5 hours, and that is from GMT. So you take GMT time, subtract 5 hours, and that is the time zone this school beacon is in. Last time it talked to glance was 20 minutes and 57 seconds ago. You should not see anything greater than 30 minutes. If you see something greater than 30 minutes, there's a communication issue, whether it's got bad cell connection or maybe a bad antenna, or there could be many other instances as to what's going on, but typically you should see nothing greater than 30 minutes. Now that timer is associated to the last event that occurred. So if I were to actually turn the beacon on right now, our timer would reset to 5 seconds ago, if you will.
So it's field-initiated communications.
Yes. The beacons automatically talk to glance every 30 minutes unless something occurs, an event. All right, continuing on down on the display, we have, of course, in this case here, we have the DC voltages. The system voltage is what's actually on the large battery in the cabinet. And then the solar array voltage, that's the power coming off of the solar panel. Underneath that, we have some more statuses. You have a cabinet door, beacon status, and lamp status. If your cabinet door does not have a switch installed, this is always going to say closed. If you have a door switch installed and a knockdown sensor, you may actually see it say closed and up, or if it's actually been knocked down or the door is open, it will say open and down.
Just give everybody a 30-second overview of what a knockdown sensor is.
Knockdown sensor is a nice little device. It's got accelerometers inside of a chip that whenever, after the unit's been installed and it's been programmed, if it should be knocked off its axis by more than 10 degrees, it's going to give you a notification saying, hey, I'm not standing up straight anymore. So in an instance, maybe a drunk driver takes out a school beacon, or just an accident for that matter, you're going to get an indication. Somebody who's watching the system will know that something's, either the cabinet door has been opened or somebody knocked down our unit.
Perfect. And then maybe you want to go over a little bit of the graphs there on the right-hand side and what they actually mean.
Sure.
And then we can jump into the scheduling.
Okay. The graphs over here on the right-hand side. Any one of these graphs, all you have to do is just click on it, and we blow it up to a little bit bigger picture. In this case here, we're showing that on the wee hours of August 11th, this device changed state. It went from central schedule off to central override off. So either somebody went and did a scenario change and did all their devices to go off, or somebody went through and picked each individual school beacon and used the control buttons, which I'll show you here in a second, and turned the unit off so it would not come on during a normal scheduled time frame. So that's the beacon state. You can use your arrows here to cycle through the various graphs. This is showing the system voltage. As you can tell, that the sun rises every day, and we see a little bit of a peak there on our solar panel.
And that looks like a healthy battery charging and discharging.
This is a very healthy one, yes. We're not seeing much discharge, so it's maintaining its charge through the night hours. Lamp status, since this beacon has, and it brings up a good point, if by chance your unit is reset or turned off, or your cycle power, and you have not turned the lamps on, this will show unknown until such a time as the lamps actually come on. Once they've been told to come on, and then it recognizes, hey, I'm supposed to be on, and I'm seeing current go through my relay, then it says, oh, my lamps are good. But if it doesn't see the current go through that relay, it's going to say, I have a lamp out.
So there's going to be a lot of customers right now that'll see unknown because the lamps have not turned on for 6 months.
It's been a while, and I'm sure your device probably has reset at least once.
Yeah. So just be aware. In other words, when you go back to school, start your beacons, turn them on, run them for 5 minutes, so that you can get back into the known status of your beacons. So I always recommend, during the summer break, before school start, go to a certain time, turn all your beacons on early morning or whenever it is for 5 minutes, turn them all off, and then you'll know your lamp status of all your beacons.
And that's another nice feature that could be used when you have scenarios already set up. And you can have it turn all your beacons on at once, and then you can actually go through and do a graph comparison and then take a look at what's going on with all your units. Let's see if we can see.
Just before you jump into there, because
Sure.
just show everybody the manual control quickly, how you can do it quickly on any device.
Any device. Once you've got this page up, we can actually come down here where it currently says status, override is active. And it's saying that override is active because somebody went through this screen and went ahead and changed the state from schedule to off. Or you can change it to on. And I can actually turn this particular beacon off and on just by clicking through this screen.
And we have multiple technician levels, so you can have a technician that's able to turn beacons on, off, or back to schedule. So when he's locally at a site, he can test it, but he's not able to do the scheduling. And then you've got view-only access rights for when you want to have someone look at it, but you don't want them to accidentally turn it on. And then administrator rights for the people that can turn it on, off, schedule, change schedules, do everything.
Right. And along those same lines, when you're talking about somebody in front of the device, if by chance they don't have their cell phone or a tablet or a laptop with cell phone access, they can still turn the device off and on using that little silver toggle switch on the side of the device, going from the auto position to the on and then the off. So you can still test your lamps out doing that way as well.
Perfect. Let's go into scheduling, and then we'll show some of the reports just when we finish scheduling.
All right, so how do you get to your schedules? Again, from this screen here, the level 2 screen, you go to the edit button up here, click on that link, give Glance a moment or two to catch up to what you're doing, and then it's going to populate the screen with the current schedule. Right now, this device, which is this little blue check mark down here, is indicating that this device underneath this school has this schedule, which is a normal school schedule, programmed into it.
One of my recommendations when you're naming schools and schedules is putting in the name of the school into the schedule so that you know that the beacon is running the correct schedule for your school. It's just a trick that I've used. It helps with diagnostics if anything goes wrong at any stage.
That's very true. There have been numerous instances where I've helped customers out on the phone that says, well, it says Schedule 1 is loaded. Well, all the default schedules are Schedule 1, but it turns out an individual had changed a different Schedule 1 and programmed it to the wrong clock. And they couldn't figure out why it was saying that this clock was coming on at the wrong time. But Schedule 1's loaded. So yes, it is a good point to go ahead and rename your schedules, and especially make it for that particular school. So in addition to the normal school schedule, we also have another one listed here is the early dismissal schedule. This is where the customer has the ability to, say, set up an additional schedule for, in this case here, when they let the kids out early, whether it's due to a parent-teacher day or for what other reasons you may have. But you can actually set up the dates and time, or not the dates, the days and times as far as when the beacons actually turn off and on.
How do you actually edit one of those?
Well, there's a couple things that you can edit. You can edit the name. You can edit the name of for example, the early dismissal, just by clicking this little button here, and it brings that up. Change the name here, then you click the little blue check mark, and it'll save it. And it'll say early dismissal in this case. Now, as far as editing the school schedules themselves, come over here where it says the edit button, bring that up. And this is where it shows the days of the week, months of the year, and the actual days of the month as far as when you want this to occur. Now again, there's different ways of programming your beacons. Some people say, well, you know what, I will just go through here and through May through July, I will just not check because we're not going to have schools running in that time frame. That can get kind of confusing. I would recommend you just leave it similar to this and just make sure you do real well with your holidays and exceptions.
Yeah, originally we did do the, people schedule it in that way, but we found it very complex. So all you do is select the Monday to Friday, select your times, leave everything else selected, and then create your holidays and exceptions, because that's where the magic is you just create your schedule, your on and off times, because those generally don't change from year to year, but your schedules do, your holidays and exception schedules.
Yes. So once you've made your changes, whether you're beacon on, beacon off, and you adjust your times, you hit the save button. I'm just going to hit cancel here because I don't want to change somebody else's schedule. Those will be saved in here. And then once you're done with creating your schedules, you want to select all the, well, there are a couple ways to do this. You could either check each individual's beacon underneath a school, or I'm going to go ahead and just uncheck these real quick just to demonstrate. You can click on the name itself, and it'll automatically populate those two check marks.
And you can also select all if you wanted to select all of your beacons.
Yes. But sometimes you'll run into a school that has multiple beacons, more than two. And one of the ways I find, just click the name, and it'll just select that school and their beacons. That, of course, there's many different ways to do this. But once you've got your beacons selected, save and publish. Let me just back that up just a second. If by chance you had your early dismissal schedule selected because you just got done editing that one, and now you want to go ahead and publish a schedule to the device, make sure you go back to your normal schedule, because if you save and publish at this point, you're going to make your early dismissal schedule your normal everyday schedule. And I've had
and it will pop up, Glance will pop up with an alert saying, are you sure you want to do this? Because it'll actually say, are you sure you want to make schedule number 2 your main schedule? So we do have checks in the system to look at those kinds of things, just to stop you from making any kind of mistake.
But there was a time when we didn't, and people made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, we're constantly improving. So that's one of the great things with Glance as well, is anything that you guys come up with, we generally implement. So new features and new functionalities come from the customer to actually come in and create all these new things. All right, let's jump over to holidays and exceptions.
All right, holidays and exceptions. There is a complete list of all the holidays they had for 2020. Next year, all they'll have to do is come in. More than likely, they'll have the same holidays, but the dates will probably change. So all they have to do is come in here and do an edit on the dates.
And you can see they've actually programmed it all the way till 2021 already.
Yeah, they're on the ball. These guys down in Sugar Land know how to do beacons. They do real well with their maintenance too.
So one of the ways that you could have programmed in the COVID-19 situations by creating a holiday, correct? How would you go about doing that?
Sure. We had quite a few customers that actually end up doing that. They just picked an arbitrary date someday in the future that they suspected, well, maybe COVID will be done, or they just went ahead and selected, you know what, school's supposed to start on such a date. We'll just go ahead and put that date in now. So how do you go about adding or making a change? You click the add button. There it is. Line 16 just popped up a holiday. Edit the name of the holiday. Mike's Day Off. A nice holiday.
Don't you wish you got a day off?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hit the save. Let me try that again.
Yeah, That's falling off the screen. Your
Yeah.
resolution isn't the best.
There we go.
Check.
Hit the blue check mark there. So mic stay off, and we'll put it on some date in the future. Let's say August 25th will be the start time of that. And again, that's going to be the midnight, or actually, I should say the very early morning of the 25th. And then we'll go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and say the 26th for one day. Actually, that'd be 2 days, 25th and the 26th. Beacon will be off. And at this point, if I'm okay with the way it looks, I would publish the holiday.
And you could send that to all of the beacons, or you could potentially send that to just one set of schools. It depends on, how your holidays and exceptions are set up. So we've had, that's why certain people have set up all their elementary schools in a business, because they know their elementary schools have the same holidays and exceptions.
Exactly.
And that's just an easy way of doing it. So, come the next school year, all you do is you set up your holidays and exceptions, publish it to all of the beacons if you've got the same holidays and exceptions for all of them. It's just very, very simple. Mike, do you want to go over scenarios? Because that's how Sugarland turned off all their beacons.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into that.
And interestingly enough, scenarios was something that we don't really use very often until COVID-19 hit. And this was an easy way of turning on and off all of your beacons.
If you remember, let me go ahead and just jump back here real quick. I'm going to go back. Yeah, I do want to leave. Don't want to save anything. We were talking about how to manually turn off your beacons. Come on, Glance. Using those radio buttons here in the center of the page. You got the on, off, and schedule. Normal application, you're going to have it in schedule. And if some people will actually just go through and click off, off, off. Well, if you've got a large system, that could take you a while clicking through each one of these devices. So one of the ways to get around that, so you can just shotgun blast them all at once, is using the scenario tab. So I go back and click the edit button again, grab a scenario, but we want to do all of their beacons. So you have to search for this a little bit. You'll find it's going to be all the way down at the bottom of the list. They got a business name here, COSL, or City of Sugarland. You got a little caret symbol next to it. Select that symbol, and this is going to be for all of their devices. How do you go about doing all their devices? Well, you actually have that add all button. So we can go actually.
But they've already created. So now let's say they want to turn all their beacons back to schedule. What would they do?
Okay, so they've already got this one listed here. It says back to school schedules. So you select that name, you verify, it says up here, it says back to school schedules, and then you're going to activate this scenario.
And what is Glance going to do then?
Glance is then going to talk to each one of these beacons, and basically those three buttons that I showed you before, the on, off, and schedule, it's going to click schedule for every one of those beacons. And then they're all going to be on schedule after 30 seconds or so from once Glance gives that command to all the devices.
That's great. So one of the things is when you guys do want to go test your beacons before school starts, this is a great way of either you can get someone to individually do each and every beacon as you drive past it, or turn all your beacons on, leave it on 5 minutes or even 2 minutes only. We just need a couple of minutes to check the current going through the LEDs, and then turn it back to schedule, and then you can actually check that all your LEDs are working with the report that gets generated. Maybe you want to go ahead and have a look at the beacon health report there.
Beacon health reports. Let's pull up reports. Beacon health report for City of Sugarland. This is the August one. Got a lot of good information on here. This is only 2 pages. Oh, I'm sorry, I grabbed the wrong report. This is the Beacon Issues Report. So as you can see, these guys are pretty much on the ball. They don't have very many issues. They've only got 2 pages here. And they're only showing 3 devices that have problems. So, I kind of digress. Let me jump back here. Get out of that one. I want the Beacon Health Report. There we go. On this report, of course, it shows you all the devices. You're looking for stuff that's green. That's what you want to see is green. You don't really like to see the red stuff. So in this case here, we've got a whole bunch of green. It's saying that it's all good. And the only one that we're seeing right now that actually did a lamp test and it says it's okay is this one here up on the top line.
And I saw that they tested that actual beacon when I logged into the system. So, and the good thing is what happens is Glance will look at the way your batteries are charging and discharging over a 3-day period and your solar panels, and will either give you a good, a fair, or a bad status so that you know that you need to purchase some batteries if you see anything that says fair now, because you're going to need to replace them in a couple of months. And if you see a solar panel like that, that's potentially the trees are starting to grow over. So maybe you need to go out to that beacon and either clean it because there's some bird poop on it, or it's just some tree cover that's basically gone over it.
Now, I'm sure somebody's probably going to make mention, I was hovering over top of the one that said fair, but that fair is actually the AC power.
They had a power failure event.
And the voltage went a little low.
Yeah. So we're basically showing that's actually a brownout event there where you see the voltage has gone low. So that, the AC hasn't been the best. All right, Mike, let's actually wrap it up. If there's anything else, obviously just maybe go through a graph comparison of the solar batteries.
Sure. We can do that real quick.
And then we'll wrap it up so we can get some guys to ask some questions and potentially also just go look at one of these beacons on the wall here and walk everyone through those.
Okay. Solar battery voltage. This is going to grab all our devices at one time. So again, as the name has been implied, this is a glance. So we can see if something is abnormal right off the bat, just at a quick glance. So without actually having to dig into each individual one and check out all the values, we can go slide down through here and look for the oddball that jumps out.
This is Sugarland, man. They look after their batteries so well, you're not going to find anything.
They all look good. So there's nothing jumping out at me saying, I need to go investigate further. So I would say I'm done with this page and I would move on to my next topic.
And people would also get text messages and things like that if there were any kind of problems. Okay, let's go ahead and you go sit back where you were, and then we'll go and get Jessica back up. Jessica, are there any questions for us at the moment?
Oh, I have loads for y'all, Peter.
All right,
Hope y'all
perfect.
Ready. Okay, first question has to do with what you were kind of alluding to there with the importance of battery health. Can you, Mike and Peter, from your experience, can you explain why this is so important and how Glance helps to monitor that in a more detailed fashion?
So the question is, why is battery health so important, and how does Glance go ahead and manage the battery health for you? What does Glance actually do?
Well, Glance will allow you to trend the information on those batteries, because batteries, let's put it this way, the biggest killer of batteries is heat. And it's not cool inside these little cabinets out there in the field. And they're going to bake in the sun all day long, 7 days a week. So what eventually happens is the batteries won't be able to charge as well as they used to. And you will see that trend as far as the battery will slowly start discharging, or won't be able to charge as much, and then it'll get to the point where it just falls off a cliff. What you want to do is, once those voltages start getting low, and you'll see that on your graph, is, I need to schedule some maintenance to go out there and check out this battery, find out why it's not charging up as much. Because if you don't have a good solar battery on your stormy days, when you don't have any sun actually hitting the panel, your lamps may not come on.
It's a great point. And then obviously Glance will use those reports that we showed, the Beacon Health Report, and basically go through and look at the way it's charging, discharging over a 3-day period, and look at the trend for you and actually give you a recommendation of you should replace it. And at the same time, if your voltage drops below 11.4 volts, it's configurable, 11.4, 11.6, it'll send out a text message to you as well saying, your battery has failed. You need to go out and fix that right now. All right, Jess, over to you.
Awesome. Someone is asking, you guys showed some really cool data and graphs and dates. How far back does this analytic data, is it able to be retrieved? Like how far back does Glance keep this information?
Good question, good question. Right now, if you were to go onto the system, you can get 6 months worth of data. If you want something older than 6 months, you want to say the 6 months and 1 day, then you got to contact us and we'll contact our people who archive all that data and we can pull it out for you. Now, granted, we're not going to get it to you real quick, but we will get it to you within a day or so. And
yeah, we never delete any data.
No, ever since the day one of your install for that device, we record that information.
Okay, Jess, over to you. You got more questions, I'm guessing.
Awesome. Oh, y'all caught me nodding my head. Okay, so we have people asking us how many holiday and exceptions at one time can they set? I think we have an actual Glance user who's asking how come sometimes I can only do 5 at a time where other locations it allows me to do as many as I want. So it's kind of 2 questions in one there.
I mean, there is a maximum number. I think it's like 32 or something like that.
We actually increased that because we had a couple of customers down in Florida who have an extensive holiday schedule. So it got a lot larger than that.
Is it more than 32 now?
It is more than 32, yes.
Okay, so it's probably 64. Generally in the programming side, it's 16, 32, or 64. We'll double check. We'll double check on that and get back to you. If you've got a beacon that's not doing the one's doing a whole bunch of exception schedules and the other one isn't, it's probably one of the beacons doesn't have the latest software version on it. Contact Mike. Mike will get you sorted out with the latest software version there. Anything else, Miss Jessica? One more. All right, go for it.
Okay, so someone's asking if it's saying invalid schedule when they published it, is there any way to set it back to the original schedule it was on? So basically, is there an easy way to kind of set the beacon back to the original schedule?
Invalid schedule. I actually haven't seen that, me personally.
No, I can't say that I've seen an invalid schedule, but you know, some of the messages you may see might be a schedule mismatch, and that's when one device is different than the other one in the same family as far as the schedule. Maybe one device got programmed and another one did not, or the timestamps just don't match as far as when the schedules are published to them. But an invalid schedule, it could be that somebody erased some of the information as far as the times and the dates, as far as on the far right-hand side. Maybe they edited or deleted or something. It's just not making sense to the glance.
But what I would recommend is just get back to us and we'll do a deep dive into your system, have a look at that, and see what we can do to help with that. Jessica's got another question. All right, go for it, Jess.
All right, so this is more of a comment than a question, but we did have some people reaching out that, you know, Zoom does decrease the quality, unfortunately, of our screen share on webinars right now because they're experiencing such an uptick. So if you, number one, want to see a better quality recording, this will be on our YouTube channel, and you will also get a follow-up email with this recording link. But also, if you want a more detailed look around in Glance, and that can be personalized to what you guys need, we can set up one-on-one Zoom sessions where they will be a higher quality screen share available. So just reach out to training@appinfoinc.com for that. And like Peter said, if the invalid schedules or any other questions that you feel like we didn't answer, just email us and we will get that over to you.
All right, guys, we've only got about 2 minutes left, so we'll quickly take you through just what's on a beacon. You want to go through there, Mike?
What's on a beacon? All
Well,
right.
just explain kind of the back panel and where our device is here.
Okay. Well, in this application here, this is a solar one. So you've got our device, which the cover's been removed, of course. Inside here, you can see a few key components that might be interested in. This one right here is our modem. Occasionally, you may have reason to contact us and say, for example, need to reset the SIM card. The SIM card is mounted right underneath the modem. If by chance you should get a unit and it's just, for whatever reason, won't communicate and doesn't look like anything's wrong and you know you've got a good antenna, there's a chance that maybe one of these little wires popped off. So that's something to keep in mind should you get on the phone with me and I ask you to open it up, take a look inside. Some of the other devices that you're seeing here on this backplane, of course, is we've got an override. This override switch bypasses all this altogether. So if you leave this in the on position, we're bypassing the clock. All right, so again, normal position should be in the auto. Now we were talking about the on-off auto toggle switch down here at the bottom. If you take it all the way to the down position, it's manually turning these things on. I'm in a local override right now. That's local override on, local override off. All the way up is in the auto position.
And if you guys ever want any training or anything like that, we can bring you in here, set up a personalized call that we can help you. We've got AC beacons, solar beacons in here, and take you through, you know, all these different things. Mike, why don't we just go sit down? We've only got about 20 seconds left, and wrap up the show.
A little long-winded there.
So we really want to thank everybody for joining us today. Please reach out to us if you've got any other questions. Our sales engineers are ready to jump in and help you with any of your kind of questions. And if you're looking at implementing one of these things, reach out to sales@appinfoinc.com and we'll get back to you guys as soon as we can. So I want to thank everybody for joining the show. Thanks so much, Mike Slavic. And until the next show, thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.